It often starts with a small choice. Someone tells you something that feels heavy, something complicated, something that would take time to think about. And then there's another version, shorter, cleaner, easier to hold. You don't always choose it on purpose, you just feel yourself leaning toward it. The simple version feels lighter. It doesn't ask much from you. You don't have to sit with questions. You don't have to feel unsure. You can nod and move on. Sometimes it's something you tell yourself. Sometimes it's something you accept from someone else. Either way, your body relaxes a little when you hear it. You don't feel stupid. You don't feel tricked. You feel relieved. The simple lie fits neatly into your day. It doesn't slow you down. It doesn't disturb the picture you already have. It lets things stay the way they are. You might even notice a small sense of comfort, like things are under control again, like you know where you stand. The harder truth, by contrast, feels messy. It has edges. It brings questions you don't want to answer right now. It asks you to change how you see something or how you see yourself. So you postpone it. You tell yourself you'll think about it later. You choose the version that feels better for now. This happens in small moments, in conversations, in news, in explanations, in promises, in reasons people give for why things are the way they are. The simple lie doesn't shout, it whispers. It sounds reasonable, familiar, safe. You don't feel like you're doing something wrong. You feel like you're protecting your peace. Most of the time, you don't even call it a lie. You call it common sense, or optimism, or being realistic. And maybe that's why it works so well. It lets you keep moving. It lets you stay calm. It lets you avoid the weight of things that would take longer to face. If you slow down, you can feel it. That moment when the easier version lands and your shoulders drop just a little. It feels better. And that feeling matters more than we like to admit. Carl Jung paid close attention to the things people don't like to see in themselves. Not because those things are rare, but because they are common. When a simple lie feels better than a difficult truth, Jung would say the mind is doing something familiar. It is turning away from what feels uncomfortable. Some thoughts feel too heavy to hold. Some questions feel like they might open doors you don't want to walk through. So the mind looks for a softer place to rest. Jung noticed that people don't push things away because they are false. They push them away because they disturb the picture they have of themselves and the world. The simple lie fits the picture. The hard truth often doesn't. So the mind protects itself. Quietly, gently. It chooses the version that causes less friction inside. This doesn't feel like lying. It feels like choosing peace. Jung talked about parts of the self that stay in the background, not hidden in darkness, but kept out of view. These parts include doubt, fear, and uncertainty, things that don't feel good to sit with. When a simple lie shows up, it helps keep those parts quiet. It covers them just enough so they don't demand attention. The mind learns this quickly. It remembers what feels easier. It remembers what keeps things calm. And next time, it reaches for the same solution again. Jung would say this is not a moral failure. It's a habit, a way of keeping balance when life feels overwhelming. Most people don't stop and say, I'm avoiding something. They just feel relief, and relief feels like the right choice. The truth doesn't disappear. Jung was clear about that. What is avoided stays close. It waits. But it no longer sits in the center. Instead, the simple lie takes its place. It holds the space. It keeps things steady enough to move forward. Jung understood that this is how people stay functional, how they keep going without falling apart. But he also saw that the more often this happens, the more natural it feels. Avoidance turns into preference. The mind doesn't ask which version is truer, it asks which one is easier to live with. And most of the time, the easier one wins. Friedrich Nietzsche paid close attention to the stories people tell themselves. Not the big stories, the small ones that make daily life feel steady. When a simple lie feels better than the truth, Nietzsche would say, the mind doesn't leave it alone. It turns that lie into a reason. The feeling comes first, relief, calm, ease, and then the explanation follows. The lie starts to sound sensible, necessary, even wise. It becomes the kind of thing a reasonable person would accept. Nietzsche noticed that people don't like holding feelings without meaning. A feeling without a reason feels unstable. So the mind builds a story around it. The story makes the choice feel clean. It says, this is practical, or this is how things work, or there's no point in making things harder than they need to be. Once that story is in place, the discomfort fades, the mind settles, the moment feels finished. Nietzsche wasn't trying to expose lies for the sake of truth. He was watching how people protect themselves, how they turn what feels good into what feels right. The simple lie becomes part of a bigger picture. It fits into how the world is supposed to be. It supports what the person already believes. Over time, this becomes familiar. You don't just prefer the simple lie, you trust it, you defend it, sometimes without noticing. Nietzsche saw how calm can feel like proof. When something brings relief, it feels true enough. The comfort becomes the reason. This is how the lie stays in place, not through force, through usefulness. The story doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it just sits there making things feel ordered. Nietzsche understood that this is how values form, not from truth alone, but from what helps people live without constant tension. Questioning the lie would mean questioning the calm it brings, and most people don't want to give that up. So the story stays, the feeling stays settled, and the simple lie feels like the smarter choice. Niccolo Machiavelli looked at what ideas do once they leave the mind and enter the world. He didn't ask if something was true, he asked if it worked. From his view, simple lies are useful. They keep people calm, they keep things moving. They stop questions from spreading too far, and because of that, they help keep order. When people accept a simple lie, they don't push, they don't resist, they don't slow things down. They follow the path already laid out. Machiavelli would notice how valuable this is. Complexity creates delay. Doubt creates conflict. Simple lies avoid both. A simple lie tells people where they stand, what to expect, what not to worry about. It gives them a shape to move inside. This doesn't require force. No one has to demand belief. People choose it because it feels easier and safer. When a group shares the same simple lie, things run smoothly. Everyone knows the story. Everyone knows their role. There's less friction. Machiavelli understood that systems depend on this. Clear stories keep people aligned. Messy truths don't. The lie doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be good enough to guide behavior, good enough to prevent questions that might disrupt things. Those who benefit from the system don't need to argue for the lie. It protects itself. People repeat it because it helps them fit in and stay safe. Machiavelli would also notice how quickly simple lies turn into rules. Once accepted, they shape what feels normal, what feels allowed, what feels dangerous to question. The lie becomes part of the structure. It tells people what matters and what can be ignored. This is why simple lies last. They don't just comfort individuals, they stabilize groups. They reduce uncertainty, they reduce resistance. They reduce the need for control. Machiavelli didn't see this as good or bad. He saw it as effective. Anything that keeps people calm, aligned, and predictable doesn't need to be defended. It stays in place on its own. And the simpler the lie, the easier it is to keep everything running as it is. Napoleon Hill spent a lot of time looking at belief. Not belief as truth, but belief as support. He noticed how people choose ideas that make life feel lighter. Simple lies work because they come with belief. Not loud belief, quiet belief. The kind that says things will be fine, that this makes sense, that there's no need to worry too much. Hill would notice how comforting this is. When you believe a simple lie, the future feels less heavy. You don't have to sit with uncertainty. You don't have to wonder what comes next. The belief fills the space where doubt would live. This belief doesn't demand proof, it offers relief, and relief feels kind. Hill wasn't interested in taking this comfort away. He saw how useful it is. Belief keeps people moving, it gives them energy, it helps them face days that would otherwise feel overwhelming. Simple lies often sound hopeful. They promise stability, they promise that things are under control. They suggest that effort will pay off or that patience will be rewarded. Believing this feels good. It makes waiting easier. It makes problems feel smaller. It turns uncertainty into something manageable. Hill would say people return to beliefs that feel positive and clean, beliefs that don't ask for too much attention, beliefs that soften fear. This doesn't mean the belief is true or false. That's not the point. The point is how it feels to carry. When belief makes life easier, people protect it, they repeat it, they pass it on, they build routines around it. Simple lies last because belief keeps them warm. It wraps them in hope. It gives them a future that feels safe to imagine. Hill saw that people don't choose belief because they are foolish. They choose it because living without it feels harder. And once belief settles in, questioning the lie feels like losing support, like stepping into the cold. So the belief stays, the lie stays simple, and life feels easier to carry. Most of the time, we already know this. We just don't like hearing it said.